Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, the federal capital. And thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak. It is a beautiful Friday morning. Jumat Karim to all the Muslim Ummah. We're excited to be here. We have lots of interesting programs, informative segments for you on the show specifically today. It's a rainy Friday in some parts of Abuja. Coming from Apo towards Airport Road, there wasn't too much, there wasn't even rain. It wasn't raining, but you know, coming into Taco, I saw that it was drizzling and it had just finished raining heavily. But, you know, whatever it is, we thank God for the showers of blessings. And we hope today continues to be a blessing to each and every one of us. I'm Darshan Husseina Usman, and thank you so much for tuning in.
Good morning, Nigeria. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning. I am Sumaya Abubakar, and like Husseina said, it promises to be an interesting day this morning. And it's chilly, Husseina. It's cool.
Yeah, it is. Yes. It's actually a cool one. Hopefully, the show is going to be as cool as the weather. and I'm sure you know what I mean. All right, so let's take a look at the highlights at this particular hour. Reps meet NUC, CBN students' body.
2 die, 3 injured in Lagos-Ibadan Expressway accident.
FBI guns down man who threatened to kill Biden.
And now the details. The House of Representatives Ad Hoc Committee on Students' Loans and Access to Higher Education is meeting with the National University Commission, the NUC, Central Bank of Nigeria, the CBN, students' representatives, and other stakeholders over the proposed students' loan scheme of the federal government. Recall that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had signed into law a bill to provide soft loans for students at tertiary institutions to undergo their studies. In his opening address at the meeting, the committee chairman, Tessar Ugbo, said they convened the Legislative Summit on Students' Loan to gather more information from stakeholders in the education sector and other relevant bodies on the best approach and strategy to implement the Students' Loan scheme in Nigeria. He added that the committee would present its report to the House of Legislative Action on the proposed amendment to the Students' Loans Act. He said, for emphasis, students' loan is an important aspect of modern education financing around the world. It creates access to education for students who would otherwise be unable to afford a higher education or unable to study professional courses needed for our scientific development, industrialization, technological advancement, and economic growth.
Now, 2 persons lost their lives while 3 others sustained injuries in a lone accident involving a Mazda bus along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. The incident occurred opposite Corn Oil Filling Station after the interchange along the highway. Spokesman, Ogun Traffic Compliance and Enforcement Corps, Babatunde Akimbi, confirmed the incident to newsmen in Abeokuta on Thursday. Akimbi stated that the driver of the Mazda bus marked LGB 739XA lost control and somersaulted into a ditch on the expressway. Trace spokesperson noted that 17 passengers were in the bus, saying that 3 people were injured while 2 persons died. According to eyewitness accounts, the crash was a lone accident due to the driver's excessive speed, which resulted into the commercial bus losing control and somersaulting into a ditch. Passengers died on the spot, a male and a female, while 3 others were injured, a male and 2 females, while the 12 other passengers escaped unhurt, he said. He added that the injured victims were taken to Idera Hospital in Shagam, while the deceased were deposited at the morgue of the same hospital. He charged motorists to avoid speeding, dangerous driving, and also adhere strictly to traffic rules and regulations.
The Federal Bureau investigation, the FBI agent have killed a man who was undergoing investigation for threats against the President of the United States, Joe Biden. BBC reported that the man was Craig Robertson and the raid happened in Provo, about 40 miles, 65 kilometers south of Salt Lake City, Utah. The report said that the investigation about him commenced in April and the Secret Service was alerted in June after he posted a threat to Biden on Facebook. Ran FBI spokesperson said that the incident began when special agents attempted to serve arrest and search warrants at a residence. The subject is deceased. The FBI takes all shooting incidents involving our agents or task force members seriously. Agents were making attempts to serve an arrest warrant on Robinson at his home in Utah just hours ahead of a scheduled visit to the state by Biden. A criminal complaint outlined messages that Robertson made on Facebook, including pictures of guns and threats to kill Biden and Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan district attorney leading an investigation into a hush money payment by Trump to an adult film star. According to the complaint, other messages targeted U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland and New York Attorney General Letitia James. Robertson posted on Facebook, "I hear Biden is coming to Utah, digging out my old ghillie suit and cleaning the dust off the M24 sniper rifle." It was just one of dozens of violent messages and photos of weapons posted on two of Robinson's Facebook accounts.
All right, with that, we'll take a look at more stories. Now, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has resolved to deploy troops to Niger to restore constitutional order in the country, and the regional bloc has therefore directed its Committee of Chiefs of Defense Staff to activate its standby force and deploy to Niger. The West African leaders reached the resolution on Thursday after an extraordinary summit in Abuja. Kende Amodu reports.
All diplomatic efforts made by the regional bloc to resolve the crisis in Niger have been defiantly repelled by the military leadership in the country. To compound issues, the junta has ignored the ultimatum given to it to restore constitutional order in Niger and has gone ahead to form a new government. Obviously angered by the recalcitrance of the Niger junta, West African leaders have resolved to uphold all measures and principles agreed upon by the extraordinary summit held on the 30th of July 2023.
Direct the President of the Commission to monitor the implementation of the sanctions. Direct the Committee of the Chief of Defense Staff to activate the ECOWAS standby force with all its elements immediately.
And you will see from the communique of this extraordinary summit that no option is taken off the table, including the use of force.
But the ECOWAS authority is keeping all options on the table for the peaceful resolution of the crisis.
And we still look to engage the party involved, including the coup leaders, in honest discussion to convince them to relinquish power as suggested and reinstate President Bazoum. It is our duty to exhaust all avenues of engagement to ensure a swift return to constitutional governance in Niger.
In maintaining its stance, ECOWAS leaders are aware of the underlying international interests by different players and are asking the African Union to endorse all its decisions. They are also calling for the support of all partner countries and the United Nations in efforts to ensure a quick restoration of constitutional order in Niger. From the ECOWAS Extraordinary Summit in Abuja, Kende Amodu, Trust TV News.
Now, some residents of Lagos State have called for accountability from members of the recently inaugurated Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms. While reacting to the committee's inauguration by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, they maintained that taxpayers will be satisfied with the committee's job if they approach their jobs with equity. The report.
For some Nigerians in Lagos, the move to inaugurate the committee is a welcome development, as no country can survive without taxation. However, they are more interested in the utilization of monies recovered from taxpayers. Hence, they urged the government through the committee to be accountable.
Tax is very important in Nigerian society. One, it makes the government work well to do infrastructures, which is good. But government has been increasing the tax without any looking at the loopholes, the overtaxation, double taxation. Nothing has been done about it till now. So if forming this committee is a good one that will look into this taxation and also block all the loopholes that taxes are meant to be, so that there will be more money for infrastructure.
The Nigerians are looking for a situation whereby you utilize the money being given to you, utilize the money being paid by taxpayers. It is not all about just inaugurating committee on tax refund, but what have they used the money for over the years? What has Nigerian government used the money for over the years? And how can they talk about the accountability of the money that has been paid over the years? That's the thing. These are the things we need to look into.
They are also of the opinion that the inauguration is good, as it will block loopholes, stop overtaxation, and pave way for more investors to come in and invest in the country.
The inauguration of the committee is in the right direction because Nigeria should start looking towards looking away from borrowing to funding our budgets. That's number one. Number two is that Nigeria still has most very unbanked nationals. We have many people that are unbanked that don't use the bank, and with that it's difficult to really trace taxation. Number three is that we have multiple taxation. I'm an employer and I'm an employer, and I understand how at the local government I have to still pay taxes. At the state government I still have to pay taxes. Then because my child wants to do one or two things, I still have to pay my personal income tax. So some of the responsibility of this committee is to look into multiple taxation, which I buy into also.
As for me, let's see how it goes. I pray it works out, because we have been paying tax for long in the country. We have been paying tax since 1960 to date. So I pray it works out for good. We can't predict the future. Only God can predict.
For many, transparency and accountability in Nigeria's tax system, which many do not trust, will encourage others to pay their taxes and contribute to the nation's development.
All right, well, the healthcare delivery system in Katsina State is on the brink of a crash as medical doctors in the state are overstretched due to the paucity of hands. Now, the alarming situation is leaving the healthcare system in a state of crisis, with only emergency services being provided at same hospitals. Now, Trust TV's Jamil Mabai was given exclusive access to some hospitals, and where he filed in this report.
Looking pale and exhausted, doctors in Katsina are overwhelmed with workload. In the last quarter, 25 doctors have left the state services. And according to Dr. Saminu, an additional 20 are planning to leave this month.
The state of affairs of health in Katsina State, so to say, is in a very sorry state. I will tell you, every day where I work, I almost say on a daily basis, I signed resignation letters. In fact, on daily basis, they are living, gravitating either within the state, migrating from the state services to the federal establishment or to the NGOs that we have in the state, or some of them have left for abroad.
In Ture Specialist Hospital and the State General Hospital, only emergency services are rendered. The situation is alarming.
Because of the shortage of manpower, the General Hospital, O&G section, they have to close down their gynae clinic. And it also happened the same thing in Ture. Because of the manpower, we cannot continue. We just have to provide emergency services only. Unfortunately, as I'm talking to you today, we don't have any ophthalmologist at that eye center today. When I took over, we have 3 pediatricians working with the state government. And now, as I'm talking to you, we have only 1 pediatrician remaining That's in General Hospital Katsina. So, and then when you look at the subspecialties, like in the O&G, was the same story. At a time, we have about 6 gynecologists in the state. Now we have just barely 1 or 2 gynecologists working with the state government. It's the same story with other specialties. We have only 1 nephrologist, only 1 urologist, 1 neurosurgeon. So you find it very difficult. Even those that are around, they find it very difficult to work.
With an estimated population of 10 million people, there are less than 100 active doctors available.
Mostly doctors look at their career progression. And then secondly is the remunerations, the welfare package, and then the working condition. You assured me of my own career progression, which is not applicable in the state government. And then the other issue is the working condition. I will tell you that we are, so to say, still offering a healthcare services that is more than 50 years old, because the equipment, the gadgets that we are supposed to use that are latest are not there. So you realize that even a specialist only offers some rudimentary services, where his friends are providing a high-tech surgery. He here is limited, still providing the services like he's still in the 1970s.
According to the World Health Organization, a doctor-patient ratio of 1 to 600 is the basic standard. In Katsina, it is 1 to 100,000. The situation is further exacerbated by the emergence of bandits' attack in Katsina. The new state government says it has a clear strategic health plan in place to address the deficit in the sector.
The agenda, especially of His Excellency, the transformation agenda, health component in that respect, concurs or it keys into the health system, touches virtually every component of the health system, especially the human resource for health.
Dr. Samini is worried after witnessing 2 of his colleagues collapsing due to workload. In this state of distress, more doctors will certainly leave the state services. Jamil Mobay, Trust TV, Katsina.
The Kebbi State Deputy Governor Umar Abubakar Argungun has opened his defense on the allegations of perjury filed against him by the People's Democratic Party and its governorship candidate General Aminu Bande at the Kebbi Governorship Election Petition Tribunal. 3 witnesses have so far testified in the defense, which opened on Tuesday on the petition that centered primarily on his unsuitability for the position of the deputy governor. The report.
The case is becoming hotter and more interesting by the day, as both the defense and prosecuting counsels are entangled into a hot legal battle of struggling to outsmart each other, while supporters of each divide of the 2 political parties have turned the courtroom and premises into a center beehive of activities, everybody wanting to double-cross the media in breaking the news first. 3 witnesses have so far been called before the tribunal, out of which 1 only presented documents to the court, while Aminullah, a traditional ruler who appeared on Tuesday, and 1 Abdurrahman Jafar Lawal, a director from the Sokoto State Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, who testified in defense of the petition, were all subjected to tough cross-examination from counsels of the 2 sides. As a matter of fact, even with an interpretation from the 2 contending counsels, who naturally have always been singing the melody of success to their own side, it is difficult to predict where the cool air of justice will eventually blow. Barrister Keke Elijah San, defending the interests of the deputy governor and ruling All Progressive Congress, explained the Wednesday's proceeding and remarked that they never had doubt about the success of their client.
What transpired today was that we continue with the defense of the 3rd respondent, that is His Excellency the Deputy Governor, and we caused the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Basic Education in Sokoto to produce certain documents, especially a report pertaining to certain investigation as may be relevant to this case. Thereafter, we call also an officer who was at some point the sole administrator and principal of the Sultan Abubakar College, Sokoto, and that person confirmed that the testimonial issued to His Excellency was properly issued, having regard to records that he met when he got there and
perhaps the celebration.
Let me confirm to you that since the commencement of these proceedings, there has never been cause for us to be worried. That is the truth.
However, Barrister Noura Bello, standing for the People's Democratic Party and its candidate, General Aminu Bande, also offered explanation on the Wednesday sitting and is seeing things differently.
In his form EC9, of which he submitted to INEC, he indicated clearly that he finishes Sultan Abubakar College in 1979. Putting that alone signifies that he finishes from that college. And now, all this rigmarole, where the third respondent being able to present grade 2 teacher certificate of him before the tribunal, they were only making reference to mock examination. I told you, even the exhibit they tendered this morning, it was only carrying asterisk within his name, which clearly shows that he has not written grade 2 teacher certificate in that college. We were able to present the principal of the college, who is the custodian of the document of the college. And he affirmed to the tribunal that based on the records available to me as the principal of that college, I did not see the name of the third respondent. Secondly, if you look at the testimonial they are parading, it was written clearly that the testimonial was issued to a graduating class that sat for grade 2 teacher certificate or higher Islam. Is mock grade 2? Is mock higher Islam?
From the Kebbi State Governorship Election Petition Tribunal, Umar Afanda, Trust TV.
The Nigerian Army has inaugurated a special court-martial to try 35 officers and soldiers that have committed various offences in the line of duty. Now, the special court-martial was inaugurated in Maimalari Cantonment, Maiduguri. Adamu Ngulde completes the report.
The Theatre Commander Joint Task Force Northeast Operation Hadin Kai, Major General Gold Chibuisi has inaugurated General Court Martial to trial personnel found wanting in the discharge of their duties. Major General Chibuisi says about 35 soldiers who were suspects of different offences shall undergo the proceedings to receive the verdicts based on the acts committed. Represented by the Deputy Theatre Commander Major General Olatukumbo Musiliu Bello, the Theatre Commander explained that the offences that were charged against the personnel include rape, murder, loss of service property, and failure to perform military duties, amongst others. He charged the presiding judges and other members of the court-martial to ensure a speedy trial.
We do not tolerate indiscipline in any form. And I can assure you, this tradition has been passed down even before we even joined the army. What we're doing basically today is to uphold that tradition. And I can assure you, our current chief of army staff, to the theatre commander, to us here, we're all rooting for one thing: discipline and justice.
According to him, said Nigerian Army was known for its discipline and reiterated his commitment to uphold it to ensure no military personnel contravening the law is left unpunished. The theatre commander tasked the judges to avoid negativity that will undermine the smooth conduct of the court, as well as the lawyers to assert their professional conduct that will assist the court in achieving justice.
The court should make sure that sitting takes place day to day as provided by the book. However, this is without prejudice to adjournment on reasonable grounds for parties to perfect their respective tasks. We are not unaware of the fact that justice delay is justice denied, and also justice rushed is bound to crash and with consequences.
Major General Gold Chibuisi warned that frivolous adjournment should be avoided and make sure that day-to-day sittings are maintained as provided by the book. He noted that the conduct of the military trials under the armed forces is to allow the armed forces to deal with matters that directly deal with discipline, efficiency, and morale of the army. From Maiduguri, Adamu Ngulde, Trust TV News.
Thank you, Adamu Ngulde, for that report. Now let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we get to have our first discussion of the day. Stay with us.
back and thank you for staying with us. If you're just joining us, you're watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Now, moving on to our discussion, the Naira inches closer to 1,000 Naira per dollar in the black market, and this is in the latest economic development. The Nigerian Naira has experienced a significant downturn, reaching an unprecedented low of 925 Naira per dollar on the parallel market. Now, this drop is primarily attributed to a surge in the demand for foreign currency, surpassing the available supply. This occurrence follows the recent shift in foreign exchange policy, marking a distinct departure from the approach during the tenure of President Muhammadu Buhari. Now, in contrast to the prior administration, the current leadership under President Tinubu has embraced a more open stance on foreign exchange. Now, during the previous administration, international institutions like the World Bank, alongside experts in the fields of banking, finance, and economics, frequently voiced concerns about the dual valuation of the Naira. This system was seen as detrimental to the economy, enabling a select few to amass substantial profits without generating tangible output. Now, these individuals capitalized on the differences between the official rate, that's the official exchange rate provided by the central bank, and the higher rates in the black market. Now, to join us this morning to discuss the forest market and its implications on the as the Naira slides on the economy, we have Dr. Emeka Ukengu, a development economist, joining us via Zoom. And we also have Dr. Obinayasi Uruakba. He's a public affairs analyst, and he joins us in the studio. Good morning, Mr. Dr. Obinaya. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
All right, now, I think we've all heard that the Naira actually plunged to a record 925 Naira per dollar, which is really, really, really high. Now, on the parallel market on Wednesday, because the demand for, Forex increased as against the supply. Rumors have it that it's actually gradually inching towards 1,000 Naira per dollar. How bad or how detrimental is this on our economy?
Let me add to what Hussein has said. Last year in 2022, analysts sat on this matter, and they actually, predicted that this was going to happen. The Naira was going to hit 1,000. And Daily Trust had an interview with one of the people in the black market who said that they're actually looking at it, to surpass the 1,000. Yes. So what's your take on that?
I think it speaks for itself. It speaks for itself. A country with 774 local government areas, 36 states plus FCT 37, has consistently for over 60 years depended on imports. Almost every country that has a strong currency has a strong productive base. And when you produce, you export more and you earn more. To the extent that you're not exporting enough, you're not going to have enough in your reserves. And if you continue to borrow, and you know how heavily borrowed we are, not just for infrastructure, but for consumption, you're going to pay a price. And then if you have an economy that is import dependent, and even the consumption patterns of our people is foreign oriented, you're going to suffer. So the way I'm dressed, the way you're dressed, helps the textile industry. By extension, the agri sector, because this is cotton. You have a 208 million population records. I'm sure we're more than that. Imagine if 1 million of them dressed the way we dressed. And then imagine if we invested, talking about energy, if we had energy and reduce the energy cost, and you had UNTL in Kaduna, where most of those who used to work there have either been thrown out of jobs or become Okada riders or Keke Napep riders. And you have the Akwete cloth in our industry in Aba that used to dress a lot of people and employ people. Now you can see it's a multiplicity of several things. And then you're talking about insecurity also. You're talking about political instability. We're still in court. So potential investors who would have come here have sat back to watch and see what would happen. To the extent that they are not bringing inflows into this country, you're going to have a challenge with foreign exchange earnings. The other challenge is the instability within the polity. Security politics and so on, which I mentioned earlier, has led to the departure of many companies. GlaxoSmithKline just left. Before then, you had a lot of the Dunlop and so on. I was in Ghana in June. Painfully, something interesting happened, that Ghana even has borrowed $3 billion. And I began to research to question why Ghana was borrowing. Meanwhile, while I was there, Ghana became #1 again in gold production. But what I found out was, as much as Ghanaians told me that COVID was what led to them having an economic recession and all of that, I still suspect that it comes down to governance. It comes down to them needing to understand that to the extent that they leverage on their relationship in ECOWAS, for instance, as simple as Irish potatoes that you can get in Bokos, Ghana struggles and sometimes imports from elsewhere, including apparel. So if you look at it, it's not just Nigeria. We are in ECOWAS, where you have free movement of persons and goods. How does Nigeria benefit from that? Now, if Ghana needs Irish potatoes, all that needs to happen is we'll move Irish potatoes from Plateau State and give to them. I'm trying to be as simple as possible. Bring it to the level of the layman. So we don't complicate it with jargons. The truth of the matter is, if we increase our power generation and distribution to beyond 5,000 megawatts, are we even up to 5,000? And then people are able to manufacture, then we are able to have local substitutes for the things that we import. Now, we do not have enough power. Manufacturing firms are shutting down. We had the cashless challenge in January, and that affected including poultry farmers who lost over 60% of their eggs.
Yeah, I remember that.
There are a lot of policy issues that have affected the things that have happened in the economy. And then at the heart of it is beyond what the government at the authority levels are doing. Those of us who are followers, our consumption patterns. If you cannot drink custard, if custard is not imported, we can also drink akamu. But again, how do you get the maize to make the akamu, or the millet to do the other type of cocoa? How do you get that when the farmers are not able to get into the farms?
You saying this
plant
actually,
and harvest.
Yes, it actually reminds me of a report by our business correspondent. She actually did a report, and it was verified by Smitten that startups or even small businesses in Nigeria have a lifespan of 3 years because of the harsh policies.
It goes beyond that. There is a 2014 report you need to go see by Smeden, Small Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, where my big brother Wale Fashion is DG, and then of course National Bureau of Statistics. That report says that you have over 32.9 micro, small and medium enterprises operating in Nigeria. There's a report that came out a week and some days ago that says that over 42% of those micro, small and medium enterprises are women. Yeah? Now, I don't want to go into all of those issues, but at the heart of it is that the MSME sector, micro, small and medium enterprises sector, where I play, drives almost every economy. So when you hear the expression Asian tigers, people who do buttons, who do needles, who do a few things, who employ 2 to 5 persons in a small room and are able to help drive your economy. The federal government of Nigeria and the subnational, state and local government areas are not able to employ more than 5% of the economy. And it happens everywhere. That's why in America you have the SBA, the Small Business Administration. In Canada you have different places where they are able to mentor and handhold and help them and create an enabling environment. Nigeria, you remember the PBEC, the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Committee, tried as much as possible to help us move away from the position, a low position where we were, to climb to a position where we were able to encourage ease of doing business. Tax, company registration, NAFDAC issues, Standards Organization of Nigeria issues, making it easy for people to use, let me use potato again, to do what you call French fries, or use yam to do flour, or use palm oil to make soap. For over 10 years, we've had over 600,000 metric tons deficit in palm oil, where if you want to make soap today, my sister, for your skin, for a population that you know is ready to consume that, you may need to go to Malaysia that actually took our palm kernel sometime in 1970, 71, 72. And then we have to now import. And then much of the palm oil you see around here, much of the palm oil you see around here is actually smuggled in.
Wow. So initially, your point is we need to, go back
Put your house in order
to the whole agriculture. Okay. So this question will be for Dr. Emeka Ukengu, the development economist that's joining us via Zoom. So, Doctor, during the inauguration of the President Tinubu, he said that monetary policy needs a thorough cleaning, where he said that the central bank must work in unifying the exchange rate. But on June 14, 2023, the CBN abolished, of course, the segmentation of the forex market into different windows to deposit money banks to freely float the naira against the dollar and other international currencies. Now, buyers and sellers now of the foreign currency can actually decide the price that they will sell, or buy these currencies. So the CBN no longer dictates like before. And one of the people in the black market that Daily Trust had an interview with he said that if the CBN don't come back, to tell the actual price, have a price control on this issue, then it's going to get worse. What's your take on that?
Well, the man from the parallel market or black market is very correct. You talked about the monetary policy, but I think you missed out, the fiscal responsibility aspect of it, which is as key as the monetary policy. I think what happened was that there was some kind of disjointment of both sectors, if you may, or both programs or policies. At one time, you had the person in charge of the fiscal policy, saying publicly that they didn't even understand what the CBN was doing. But that is at the front end. The major issue we have in Nigeria is that we've lost, or we don't understand the use of statistics and mathematics. What am I trying to say? Until you become statistical and mathematical, you can't move from where we are or where we were 60 years ago. Today, everybody will tell you that you have a country of over 200 million people. I mean, that simple word is even aberration in itself when you want to talk about development planning or national planning, because you must be statistical and mathematical in doing your planning, in understanding. If you don't know how many you are, how do you know how many people you're going to feed? How do you know what you need to do the feeding? My brother in the studio had talked about palm oil coming from Malaysia and then taking palm oil from us. The sad aspect of palm oil was that, if you're a geographer or you're an air, from his name, I think both of us come from the same region. The colonial administration in Eastern region used palm oil to ring the whole of the Eastern region. And I'm just not talking about the Southeast. If you followed the palm trail, you could just get it all around. It went from Enugu and circled all the way to Port Harcourt, Uyo, Cross River, and all those states within the Southeastern region. Now, what did that mean? It meant that in developing that volume, it became a lot easier for them to now be able to bring the value, which is why we became one of the biggest producers of palm, in the world. This is ditto for granite. In northern Nigeria, where you and Haja, comes from, you also had the granite belt that was running almost all across the whole of what you call the northern region now, from where you go, the northeast to the northwest. You had it all the way from Jigawa. It traveled all the way to Kebbi. And that now led, to the establishment of those, granite pyramids. And the funny and annoying part of this is that the infrastructure that were built by the trade in those commodities happened to be the biggest and the tallest you have in each of these regions. In Kaduna, the 10-story building, was built with money, that was a revenue from granite. It remains the tallest, biggest infrastructure, public facility infrastructure built. Ditto for the ACB building, ditto for the net building in the Southwest Nigeria. So I think the major problem we have as a country is that we've not been able to do what you call development thinking. Now, development thinking will be, what were the policies that ran your colonial administration? How come they were able to do so well what infrastructure around this they are doing well. And then in now doing a backtrack, what do we now need to put into place to be able to have a fiscal, act or fiscal responsibility program that now aligns positively with your monetary policy? First and foremost, let me say this, and with a lot of respect, to us as Nigerians, we don't have a currency that can stand anywhere. And you see, when you talk about the Committee of States, it is the value of your currency that gives you, a seat in that Committee of States. And then what gives you that currency is what that currency, or gives you that value, is what that currency is trading against. Which is why at the point in time we're trading granules. For those of us who were undergraduates at that time, who were flying into London on student rebate tickets of then 5,000, then it became 7,000, and I think there was a protest. 7,000 naira, and then you could walk out of that airport. Those days it used to be Heathrow, walk onto the high streets of England and spend naira. It was because naira had value. So it would be rude and maybe a little bit not right, okay, unpatriotic for me to say that we have a currency that is valueless. But when you juxtapose it against the other currencies, you are forced to even come to this reality, which is why in the CBN intervening, by putting subsidies on the naira, we now made another mistake. At that point in time, they were subsidizing the naira. We should have taken a very prompt, proactive measure to make certain that we had production up and running. If you go to the Daonu market today and you wanted 1 million, bags of granules and peanuts, you probably will get them. Okay, but there was no aggregation to now begin to now put what you call the midstream values into it that can actually now qualify it to be traded in international markets. It was still being sold, as industrial inputs, and they got lost. It's like today, I don't know if you're going to get that in this course of this conversation. We're talking about this DP, where you had us taking our crude out and then had us bring in, the finished products. Now, some people argue that would have been the end of subsidy, but has it helped us in also now curbing the price of petroleum? It hasn't. You know why? Because that trade is dominated in Forex. So the moment you do that exchange, you now come and transfer it and change it back into your local currency, and it will mean nothing. Truly, the person who predicted 1,000, I predicted this, I don't know if it was on a television station or some other. I said, wait for it, it's going to happen. The moment you remove this subsidy, that you're putting on naira, okay, the moment you put this official pricing, if you may call it, for better understanding, you're going to see the thing fly out of the window. It's going to be valueless. People now value, a friend of mine needed to go to Germany, and then I made a call to an agent, and then I saw his face was turning all colors. And he said, hold on, please, let me call you back. He put his phone on speaker, and the guy says, please tell me what you said again. He says, return tickets, sir. Economy 3 million. And he said to me, what the hell is going on? I said, nothing is going on. They are converting your naira into dollar. That price hasn't changed by $1 in the dollar, value. It is your own currency that is thickening. But it is not all hopeless. What is important is that if we're able to do the right things and then put in the right frameworks, and like I said, the first and the most important that is lacking and missing is data. If we do not have a proper data of our human resources, you can't turn those human resources into capital. If you do not have proper data and statistics on your raw materials, you cannot turn those raw materials into goods. If you do not have proper data on both your human capital and your raw materials, you cannot begin to now build the infrastructure that can support both their development. So I think that is where, the problem is hinged.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Okengu, for joining us in the studio this morning and for your analysis. All right, let's come back to you, Dr. Rakman. Now, hearing Dr. Okengu, talking about hearing him talk about how the naira actually had value back then, even in England, just brought me to the question, because back then we used to hear our stakeholders talk about how they're planning on strengthening the naira making it compete with the dollar. But we don't even hear, that happening anymore. When will the demand for the dollar or foreign exchange actually stop? When we get to a point where, there's parity between the naira and the dollar, where it gets to compete 1 naira to $1 in Nigeria?
Okay. What God cannot do does not exist.
So we're back to hoping as Nigerians.
No, we're very spiritual. I want to thank Dr. Kengu. He's someone I follow very closely. In fact, he has done an end-to-end analysis for you, and he took you back in history. I think what Chinua Achebe said, if you don't know where the rain started beating you, you will not know where it stopped. And the person that asks questions does not miss their way. But the Yorubas will also tell you that when two siblings walk into a room like this and come out smiling, they have lied to each other. Let us stop using rhetorics. Let's stop using rhetorics. Like he said, the cocoa house you have in the West, go and find out what Awolowo did, what Chief Obafemi Awolowo did in the Southwest. Go and find out what Michael Okpara did in the Southeast. As simple as the poetry. Find out how you have poetry at the back of almost every house in the Southeast, which has extended to the rest of Nigeria. Find out the farm settlement system, which now has helped you to have the university at Umudike. Find out the Karon Amoda, what happened in Karon Amoda, and look at the map of Nigeria and see the train intersection and the train movements in Nigeria, where you pick from Karon Amoda, come down to Jos and pick the tin, and move to Southwest and pick the cocoa, and get to the seashore, the seafront, and move it out. And then come down from Maiduguri and go through Aleade in Benue State, and come down to Enugu and take the farm produce, and get to Port Harcourt, and then move out there. Now, if you look at the structure, yes, initially we used to say this is what the colonial masters did to us, this structure, but we can use the same structure since we're now independent. Now, there's a document you need to go see. I've mentioned it here several times, just to buttress what Dr. Kengu said. It's called the One Local Government, One Product, which where Adelaja and her team at Smeden visited Japan to go see. In Japan, you have the One Village, One Product OVOP. Now, we have One Local Government, One Product. Almost every local government area in Nigeria has at least one commodity it has comparative advantage on. It may not be agricultural, it may be solid mineral, it may be something else. I'll give you an example of Zobo. You drink Zobo, yeah?
Yes,
good. Go look for hibiscus. About 7 years ago, I believe the quarantine service documented, I'm talking about documented statistics, Doc talked about statistics, that Nigeria exported $35 million worth of hibiscus flower. Hibiscus is what you have in Zobo. And guess, 85%, talking about statistics and data, 85% of that export went to one country alone. Guess the country? Mexico. And I had lunch with an ex-senator, and he told me that he just came back from Cancun, and that almost every drink in Mexico has a component of hibiscus in it. So why can't Nigeria stay on her strengths? The low-hanging fruit for Nigeria is agriculture. Resolve issues around insecurity. Deal with infrastructure. We have had the second Niger bridge. Make sure that at least there's security to ensure that we don't destroy the rails and so on. And then we, the citizens, also need to be spoken to. But that's even a low-level discussion to have for now. But the fact remains that if we open up the hinterlands, make sure the roads, I travel a lot. I travel across Nigeria. I just came back from Numan. To travel from Yola to Numan is 45 minutes. The Omo and the dry fish I came back with from Numan will amaze you. I went to conduct an entrepreneurship training there. And about 100 people sitting in a room told me that all they needed was to move out what they have to Lagos where it can be bought. Almost on a daily basis, if you speak to Mietiala, over 6,000 cows leave the north and get to Lagos, eaten as kebab, killed in the abattoirs, consumed, meaning that we actually have options, a get out of jail option. But what do? We still want to bring in imports. So you're not likely going to have naira to dollar at one to one. It's going to be a struggle unless, like Doctor said, you sit down and ensure that there is an alignment between your fiscal and monetary policies. Ministry of Finance and Central Bank and all of the people who need to sit down, we need to actually have a town hall meeting to find out how we need to go back to how it used to be, where you had the pyramids. Nigeria is supposed to be number one on cassava, and Nigeria is supposed to be number one on yam. But as I speak, how well is Nigeria managing the yam exports? That is not just input for production, like he said. It's just primary products. Now, let me also tell you that the non-oil exports can actually help us get out of this. But again, you need to put a lot of things together, sensitization, to ensure that our people understand to add value before they export these things. I'll give you an example. The phone you have, the tablet you have, has a component in it that is found around Bauchi. The last time I checked, if you check the TikTok or some of the short videos that fly around in social media, a bag of it is illegally being mined and shipped to China for 2,000 naira a bag. Now, I think Zimbabwe, it's escaping me now, the particular company, maybe Doc will help us. That company has a name. Zimbabwe has stopped the export of that component. So they could now begin to process theirs and export. If they start processing, it will create jobs, and whoever needs it should come to Zimbabwe and process it and then export it at a higher value. There are a few things we need to do if we put our house in order. If you brought intellectuals into a room to actually sweat this stuff, do not be mentally lazy to sweat the issues that we are dealing with. Deal with energy so that manufacturing goes on. Deal with the issue of infrastructure so that people are able to move goods and services. Deal with, census is coming, like Doc said. Are we going to do real census, authentic census, and ensure that we count human beings exactly the number of human beings we have, and not add cows and goats to it? Are we going to have the right kind of census to ensure that we have data on actually what is being produced in Nigeria and how many people are in Nigeria consuming what, so that we can plan to know who we produce for and who is going to consume what? And then again, I don't want to even get into the issue of the 500 billion that want to share 8,000 naira to how many persons. We've done the little mathematics in my own office, and we found out that if you did 774 local government areas dividing 500 billion at the rate of 8,000, you're likely going to have about 15,000 persons in a local government area. If you formed them into a cooperative society, and you focus them on exactly what it is that can be found in that area, even if it is, let's say, beans in Gombe, and you now turn the beans and say, okay, it can be used to fry akara in the southeast or southwest where a lot of it is consumed, then you have created a market. The challenges that MSMEs face are three. One, ideas generation, which is a function of, can we work on the mindset of our people to get more entrepreneurial? The average Nigerian hustles, but you can actually take it to the level of entrepreneurship, which is where I play. Now, as I speak, the MasterCard Foundation, where I serve as a mentor, is organizing a training for over 40,000 Nigerian youths to turn them to entrepreneurs, helping them to do trademarking, logo registration, NAFDAC registration, and all of the company registration. If they have all of that systems and structures, they're able to stand on their own and take advantage of what is found in the environment to produce, so that you can sell and increase whatever your GDP is. That's number one. The next one is access to finance. So if you have this 500 billion, I'd recommend that you rather form them into a cooperative society, so that there is economies of scale, and they're able to produce, and then you do exchange of goods and services. Like Doc said, the things that are in the north are not the things in the south. You can even, within Nigeria alone, if you have enough data, move goods and services. The palm oil coming from the palm tree in Ngopwala, or in Isiolongwa, or Isiomongwa, can actually go to Sokoto, and you take the onions in Sokoto and bring it down to Lagos, and take the fish in Badagry. The crayfish that if you get into the Atlantic Ocean in Badagry, or even the Nigerian coconut, which is different from the Ghana coconut. These are statistics and data that we have had. And then do a business plan on this. Access to finance. Give that money to them to work as a team. The next one is access to markets. How much of Nigerian things do we consume? I deliberately wear this red cap and dress like this because I promote culture and I promote made in Nigeria. Not that I don't have suits to wear. I have suits bought from the Dubai Mall and bought from different places, but much of the things we wear here is either from Vietnam or from UK, or even the cars we drive. Mahatma Gandhi told the Indians, if you must drive a car, let it be an Indian-made car. If you must watch TV, let it be an Indian-made TV. And they came out with the Hindustan, and came out with the president, the best ever made Indian TV, and then the Hindustan, their first car. And today, where do you go for medical tourism? India. And then we don't even want to go into all of the issues around the disruptions within the system. If the doctors are not going to strike today, it is one other thing. How do you expect the foreign investors that we're all speaking to on social media? And then the next one is, how do we even give visibility to the things we do? Someone said, if the phone you're carrying does not make you money, throw it away. The young people want to do stuff, but we had a central bank that consistently kept staying staying behind the flow of history, where these young people want to sponsor their arts with $2, and you insisted that things must be done in a particular way. Now we've introduced the e-Naira. Where is National Orientation Agency to promote the e-Naira so that people understand what exactly that thing is for? Do you understand what it is for?
Indeed. All right, Dr. Obinaya, you've said a lot. All right, Dr. Emeka Okengu, let's move on. A quick question before we wrap up because of time. Okay, so you know, someone from the forex market, a trader, said that the demand is more than the supply, and he even complained that even commercial banks don't even have the dollar, so they go to them in order to get the dollars for their customers. And this is something, you know, coming after the president's speech, in his inaugural speech, of course. So also the chairman of WAPA Forex Market, Sani Dada, made the blame to be the government. He mentioned that the government is to blame on that, emphasizing on productivity, just like both of you have talked about this morning. So the question here today is, should the border be closed, you know, and can something be done? Because there was a time that the National Assembly were putting a motion of the Japa syndrome, saying that they should, you know, reduce the movement of people, and that is also increasing. It's one of the causes of the dollars, you know, increasing the demands, of course, because people when traveling want to have a dollar to travel with. So should the border be closed, and should the government have something to do, you know, with a lot of movement going outside the country? What's your take on that?
Well, let me first thank Dr. Bina, and please ask him not to keep my fish and
Oh, I think we lost Dr. Emeka Okengu. So right now, Dr. Obinaya, can you just...
He seemed very excited with the question.
Yes. I pray Doc comes back. Someone I respect so much.
Contribute. Which of sorry, I'm back here. Just keep my
passport. I love Nigeria. If not, I would have jabbed because of the sapa in this country. I sell palm oil, I sell plantain.
Okay, you see, you know, it's very simple, ladies. If you can hear me.
From Sabongidora, and I'm not a native doctor, so I will not hide my own secrets.
All right, Dr. Obinaya, please, we take a pause on that. Dr. Emeka is back, so I think we would like to, you know, hear from him because he seems to have a lot to say on that one.
The first question you're going to be asking is, what borders are you closing? Do you have any borders? If you're from northern Nigeria, my wife is from Adamawa. Okay, for those of you from the north, do we have any borders to close? Where you have more than 1,000 kilometers of open land, is that a border? That's question number one. If you close those borders, the last time we did, we closed both the northern and the southern borders. What happened? It created more problems because a lot of the foods that we consume actually come from across these borders. You have more rice coming in from the northern border than you have rice being produced in Nigeria. This is a fact. So I don't think it's all about closing borders. I think it's all about, you know, doing something Dr. Rapa had said, you know, listening to him. What you will see in the Nigerian parlance will be a motivational talker and not somebody who can become a resource. In other climes, Dr. Rapa should have been engaged by government to start helping small businesses to generate their business plans that can become feasible for funding. But what do you do with people like that? You invite him on television, and in trying to remain, you know, very patriotic, you know, he begins to also, like me, you know, begin to show some level of frustration. So the major problems we have is that if you're talking about the SBAs, go and look at the facts behind the figures. It is people like Dr. Rapa that are engaged by government, not only to mentor, not only to speak to patriotism, but to be able to, you know, put business plans that can work, that will now run, instead on collateral lending, will run on what they call cash flow based lending. Now, when you have things like this, and this is where your research institutes come. What's the relationship between our research institutes and our policy and our businesses? Now, if you're talking about closing the border, Haja, you're going to be making, you know, the dollar more expensive because the dollar right now is a good, and it's important to see it as that. The only goods that people are trading in now is dollar. And those who understand knew that the moment they took that policy of saying you are going to be having a single exchange market, everybody who was wise knew that dollar was going to be hitting 2,000. And please let me also predict that if you are not very careful, we are going to be hitting 2,000 and more, because it's become the only goods that people who have cash can be able to trade. And no matter how bad it is, even if it falls by 2 or 3 naira, it's going to be skyrocketed.
We seem to have a technical
There's
issue
nothing.
with
It is only thing, the two
Dr.
tied to the dollar.
Okay, so just before we go, Dr. Urakba, now recently the president inaugurated a fiscal policy and tax reform committee, and we would actually want to hear a perspective on the 1-year mandate, that they actually have given to the given to the committee itself. Now, tax reforms on fiscal governance and growth facilitation, and how possible is it to actually achieve an 18% tax to GDP ratio in just 1 year?
It's possible in 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
If not earlier. I've had reason to engage the FIRS for years. I gave them a simple suggestion. You have the National Youth Service Corps that has over 600,000 corpers mobilized across about 6 batches every year. I've been recommended to have, a CDS group for risk management of tax. And then, as I traveled around the country training on entrepreneurship and all of that, building the ecosystem, I got to Sokoto on one of those days, and I saw the voluntary tax declaration platform, and they came and approached me with form, even at the airport here. So they've tried a few things on their own. I have recommended to them to say Nigerians are not averse to paying tax. The only thing is that you cannot take something out of nothing. You have to give to take. If we build the ecosystem, and for instance, I was in the insurance industry, I still trained them. And what we did was what we call product bundling. So if we had like what we call an Okada scheme, we built insurance into it. So that if you said you didn't like insurance and you needed the Okada on hire purchase, as you repaid, maybe every day, if you use your Okada to transport, you return 500 naira per day, all of that. Or you're doing maybe a Bolt or Uber, and you return like 25,000 per week. Inside the 25,000 is insurance. And then if you came to the bank to take a loan, we had what we call credit life policy, where 2% of that was insurance. So indirectly, the people paid for insurance without knowing they had paid for it. Am I communicating? You can build tax into all of that. Now, I have begged, I have gone there. I'm still going to continue to say, now, when you talked about, I'm not a motivational speaker, I'm a personal development trainer. I take it from point A to point Z. And because of my experience as a copper, with 350 naira Lawi in Doma, local government area, I was selling yam 6 naira, 8 naira, 12 naira. Moving yam from Doma to East, my Lawi was 350. Today, coppers earn 33,000 naira. And if you have 10 coppers come together, that's how much. Now, I do not think it is rocket science. For us to tell ourselves the truth, there are 3 things you can never go wrong with in an economy that is prone to depression: food, health, and education. So if you want the real answer, it is possible in 3 months even. What you need to do is, you're a lady. No man, even if he says he's the younger brother of the senior pastor of my church or the younger brother of an imam, no man will approach you and say, I want to marry you, and I want the wedding to be next weekend. You ask him, are you suffering from malaria? First of all, there has to be 3 things you must do. There must be stakeholders mapping in Project Nigeria. Same way you have in-laws and you have other people who are involved in the marriage process. The next one is stakeholders engagement. The person has to tell you, will you marry me? Will you work with me? That's engagement. And probably put a ring in your engagement ring in your finger. I'm trying to be as simple as possible. Then the next one is stakeholders management. By the time you marry that lady into your house, then you realize that what the bitter cola sounds to the ear is not what it tastes in the mouth. Okay. You now realize that the lady needs to rub Vaseline, the lady needs to eat, and when she takes in, you need to go for antenatal and so on. What I'm trying to say is, to build a nation is like the marriage process. It takes a lot of work, and there's no dodging it. It's work. You have to start from training, get the mind cleared, then you set up a process, and when you have set up the process, you need to fund it. And when you fund it, then you delay your gratification and say, in the next 22 to 25 years, we need to recreate and recalibrate the mindset of Nigerians. It takes about 20 years to clear the mind of Nigerians from this import dependency and mindset of anything imported. It takes about 20 years to change that mindset. Then finally, when you have crossed that level, then you need to make Nigerians to believe in Project Nigeria. And it has to be all hands on deck, the public and private sector, that's stakeholders mapping I was talking about. But let me also settle it here. It's not all bad news. My people say bad ground, not better ground for native doctor. Meaning that all of us here are native doctors. And who is the native doctor? The native doctor is that one that had white chalk around his eyes. Had white chalk around his eyes. It's the same white apron that doctors wear in National Hospital. So in the traditional African society, the native doctor was the one that knew which shrub and which leaf was for the eyes and the one that was for the mouth. He had the skill and the training that the average person didn't have. Is it possible that we handhold our young people who are now being mentored by TV and cartoons from abroad? If we sat down here and told the story that Okengu was telling, did you know that to fly to London was as simple as 5,000? To fly to Lagos from Nsoka, Enugu area was like 15 naira. The Nigerian Airways that we had over 25 planes with engines, that now we have none. Yeah. We have any, and we have 55 countries, and you have the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. You can't close borders, ma. The last time you close it, you cause trouble for us because you're supposed to be giant of Africa. The headquarters of ECOWAS is in Asokoro, and over 90% of the sponsorship is from you. It's as simple, and that's why they made you chairman of ECOWAS. So let's call a spade a spade. There are about 15 to 16 countries within the West Coast, if my statistics is not failing me. 55 countries in Africa, and with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. When I got to Ghana, I demanded to go to the headquarters to speak to the South African guy who is the head of the place, and I wanted to ask a question. Now, can we now move things from one country to the other? Can we add value to it so that we begin to even trade in?
Sadly, Mr. Oragba, we have to actually
forgive me.
Stop this discussion here.
Indeed. Thank you so much for today's discussion. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Obinaya C. Uruakpa, a public affairs analyst. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And also, thank you, Dr. Emeka Ukengu, a development economist that joined us via Zoom. Thank you. Okay. And with that, of course, we wrap up the discussion of the forest market and its implication to Asnara slides on the economy. Now, let's take a short breather. And when we come back, we get to take a look at what the national dailies are saying this morning. Stay with us.
For staying with us. Now let's quickly move on to the highlights at this hour. Federal government earmarks 1 billion naira for establishment of Diaspora Center for Research.
Nigerian Army denies 25 officers resigned over corruption.
ECOWAS orders immediate standby force against Niger junta.
Now the details. Executive Secretary of Tertiary Education Trust Fund, the TED Fund, architect or ASC, Sonny Echono, has disclosed that an allocation of 1 billion naira was provided in the fund's 2023 budgetary allocation under the Special Intervention Initiative for the establishment of Diaspora Center for Research and Development. Echono stated this when the chairman of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM, Honorable Abike Dabiri Erewa, paid a courtesy visit to him on the implementation plan for the successful execution of the Diaspora Research Center for Development project. He hinted that the allocation letter had been given to the University of Ibadan with a recommendation that the institution submit an implication or implementation plan for effective takeoff of activities. While re-emphasizing TED Fund efforts and commitment to research and development, Echono announced that an additional sum of 250 million naira was also allocated to the University of Ibadan under the 2023 budgetary allocation designated projects as a fund assistance for Global Research Center at the institution. He further said the proposal indicates that the facility shall be an incubator for hosting experts, practitioners, and policy professionals with interest and experience in research, including hosting fellowship and exchange programs to produce truly globally impactful diaspora and transitional knowledge. In her remarks, Dabiri disclosed that TED Fund followed through with the commitments by earmarking 1 billion naira for the establishment of Diaspora Research Center in University of Ibadan.
Increased by the new Chief of Army Staff, massive construction of new accommodation and extensive renovation of old and dilapidated buildings.
The Economic Community of West African States, the ECOWAS, has ordered the Chief of Defense Staff Committee to immediately activate its standby force. President of ECOWAS, Omar Aliyu Traore, gave the order while reading the resolution taken at the extraordinary meeting on the Niger coup in Abuja on Thursday. Daily Trust had reported how the leaders converged on Abuja or in Abuja to discuss its next line of action after the 7-day ultimatum for the reinstatement of President Mohamed Bazoum elapsed without compliance from the junta. And its meeting, the regional bloc said all efforts to dialogue with the Niger junta have been rejected by coup leaders. The ECOWAS leaders also condemned the continuous detention of President Mohamed Bazoum and his family members.
All right, with that, we'll move on to some packages. Now, the Economic Community of West African States has resolved to deploy troops to Niger to restore constitutional order in the country. The regional bloc has therefore directed its Committee of Chiefs of Defense Staff to activate its standby force and deploy to Niger. The West African leaders reached a resolution on Thursday after an extraordinary summit in Abuja. Kende Amodu reports.
All diplomatic efforts made by the regional bloc to resolve the crisis in Niger have been defiantly repelled by the military leadership in the country. To compound issues, the junta has ignored the ultimatum given to it to restore constitutional order in Niger and has gone ahead to form a new government. Obviously angered by the recalcitrance of the Niger junta, West African leaders have resolved to uphold all measures and principles agreed upon by the extraordinary summit held on the 30th of July 2023.
Direct the President of the Commission to monitor the implementation of the sanctions. Direct the Committee of the Chief of Defense Staff to activate the ECOWAS standby force with all its elements immediately.
And you will see from the communique of this extraordinary summit that no option is taken off the table, including the use of force.
But the ECOWAS authority is keeping all options on the table for the peaceful resolution of the crisis.
And we still look to engage the party involved, including the coup leaders, in honest discussion to convince them to relinquish power as suggested and reinstate President Bazoum It is our duty to exhaust all avenues of engagement to ensure a swift return to constitutional governance in Niger.
In maintaining its stance, ECOWAS leaders are aware of the underlying international interests by different players and are asking the African Union to endorse all its decisions. They're also calling for the support of all partner countries and the United Nations in efforts to ensure a quick restoration of constitutional order in Niger. From the ECOWAS Extraordinary Summit in Abuja, Kehinde Amodu, Trust TV News.
Thank you, Kehinde Amodu, for that report. Now, some residents of Lagos State have called for accountability from members of the recently inaugurated Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms. While reacting to the committee's inauguration by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, they maintained that taxpayers will be satisfied with the committee's job if they approach their jobs with equity. The report.
For some Nigerians in Lagos, the move to inaugurate the committee is a welcome development, as no country can survive without taxation. However, they are more interested in the utilization of monies recovered from taxpayers. Hence, they urged the government through the committee to be accountable.
Tax is very important in Nigerian society. One, it makes the government work with to do infrastructures, which is good. But government has been increasing the tax without any looking at the loopholes, the overtaxation, double taxation. Nothing has been done about it till now. So if forming this committee is a good one that will look into this taxation and also block all the loopholes that taxes are meant to be, so that there will be more money for infrastructure.
The Nigerians are looking for a situation whereby you utilize the money being given to you, utilize the money being paid by taxpayers. It is not all about just inaugurating committee on tax refund, but what have they used the money for over the years? What has Nigerian government used the money for over the years? And how can they talk about the accountability of the money that has been paid over the years? That's the thing. These are the things we need to look into.
They are also of the opinion that the inauguration is good, as it will block loopholes, stop over-taxation and pave way for more investors to come in and invest in the country.
The inauguration of the committee is in the right direction because Nigeria should start looking towards looking away from borrowing to funding our budgets. That's number one. Number two is that Nigeria still has most very unbanked nationals. We have many people that are unbanked that don't use the bank, and with that it's difficult to really trace taxation. Number three is that we have multiple taxation. I'm an employer and I'm an employer, and I understand how at the local government I have to still pay taxes, at the state government I still have to pay taxes. Then because my child wants to do one or two things, I still have to pay my personal income tax. So some of the responsibility of this committee is to look into multiple taxation, which I buy into also.
As for me, let's see how it goes. I pray it works out, because we have been paying tax for long in the country. We have been paying tax since 1960 to date. So I pray it works out for good. We can't predict the future. Only God can predict.
For many, transparency and accountability in Nigeria's tax system, which many do not trust, will encourage others to pay their taxes and contribute to the nation's development.
All right, with that, we'll take a quick breather, and when we return, the newspaper review comes up.
But in a situation where you find that they look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that.
All right, welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. Now it's time for the newspaper review, and we'll begin by taking a few front pages from the national dailies. We'll start with Daily Trust, the newspaper. We have the lead story on Niger. that says Nigerians kick as ECOWAS orders deployment of troops. Riders says force threat must be withdrawn. This is attributed to Jega, Agway and others. It's about collaboration and unity, says Tinubu. Will be at the receiving end, experts warn. Bazoum will be killed if we're attacked, says military rulers. And you can find details of that story on page 4. We also have Tribunal sacks Kano NPP rep over certificate forgery. Hike in interest rate hurting economy, Institute tells CBN. Kano woman sues boyfriend for dumping her after spending almost a million naira on him. We also have Niger owes Nigeria 4 billion naira for power supply, says NERC. 21 killed as gunmen attack Plateau community. And ASU knocks federal government over dissolution of universities' governing councils. These are some of the stories on Daily Trust.
All right, we'll move to the Vanguard newspaper this morning. From the top there, it says Nigeria's oil production declines 13.6% to 1.8 mbpd. We have Southeast governors and representatives. Army move against insecurity. Why Naira is depreciating, you find this on page 20. Job racketeering reps, panel others, arrest of the ex-FCC staff. 21 killed in fresh attacks on Plateau, on 2 Plateau communities. Now, the lead story that says Niger echoes others deployments of standby force. The Reds Committee of Chiefs of Defense Staff to activate standby force appeals to UN for support, and junta warns that they will kill disposed presidents in event of any military intervention. Forms new government and names 21 ministers. UN chiefs worries about Nigerian president detention's condition. That's according to the spokesperson. Can warns against the military intervention in Niger. Use diplomacy, not military action. Afenifere tells ECOWAS, and dialogue has failed to resolve crisis. That's the Cote d'Ivoire president. All the stories you find on page 8 of the page, I beg your pardon. The faction, APC, NWC to welcome Edo Deputy Governor next week. APC decries escalation of banditry in Zamfara. Tribunal sacks Kano NNPP rep member over certificate forgery. We have Man City can't recreate treble win, says Guardiola. Now, these are some of the stories on the Vanguard front page this morning.
All right, now on this day, we have from the top of the page there, excess liquidity weakens Naira further at parallel market to 950 Naira per dollar. Official parallel market gap widens to 169 Naira. CBN resumes OMO auction. IMF says Nigeria's economic policy is too loose to support nation's currency. Apex Bank recorded over 103.85 billion naira profit in 2022. Now we have illegal possession of firearms. Court fixes August 15 to hear Emefiele federal government's applications. Below the mast there, UNICEF advocates for 6 months paid maternity leave for working nursing mothers. Tinubu rejoices with doing of accounting. Akintola Williams at 104. Now, the lead story still talks about Niger as ECOWAS deploys troops and they're ready for diplomacy and peace. These are some of the stories on this day.
We'll move to the Punch newspaper. The major story there says Niger crisis. ECOWAS troops on standby. Junta threatens to kill Bazoum. The writers there says Tinubu says ECOWAS open to dialogue. UN, US worry over Bazoum in Junta's captivity. Concerns rise over looming humanitarian crisis, burden on Nigeria's finances. That's the military, rather. You find all the stories on page 2. There's a pictorial of the ECOWAS meeting. Below that we have flood hits Edo, Adamawa, Ekiti, and 17 others. Elevator crash, more dust after Lagos female doctor's tragic death. And bus crashes into Lagos shops, kill mother and daughter. A sad story there. At the top of the newspaper, we have Kalu lobbies Ganduje for more Southeast ministerial slots. Naira slum, fuel price may go up, says marketers. Okay. Shaibu faults defection claim, court holds removal. Now, these are some of the stories on the Punch newspaper today.
All right, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. From the top there, we have Oshomole to Shaibu. APC not haven for failed politicians. Southeast governors to battle insecurity collectively. Carbide ripened fruits dangerous, says NAFDAC, and the NAFDAC actually wants, and this has actually been emphasized over and over again. 21 killed in Plateau, dawn attack by bandits. Now below the name mass there, Tinubu extols chartered accountant Akintola Williams at 104. Lead story still talks about ECOWAS and, the deployment of troops to Niger. We also have MBS report says agri sector lost 577 billion naira to flooding in 2022. General Agwai, Jega, Uwais, Bugaje, 8 others say don't use force on coupists. And these are some of the stories on the Nation.
We'll move to the Guardian newspaper this morning, where the major story there says Niger forms new government as ECOWAS standby force ready for deployment. And the question is being asked, who blinks first? The sins of forgotten past, where Nigerians opt for cinemas ahead aging museums. Youth Party false claim of 1 trillion naira saved in post-subsidy era. Reps issues arrest warrant on IPPIS officer over alleged job racketeering. Otedola makes fresh move, raises stake in FBNH with 0.3% worth 2 billion naira. A Nigerian artist raised 11 billion naira revenue from Spotify in 2022. Now, these are some of the stories in the Guardian newspaper this morning.
All right, and with that, we're done reading out some of the stories on the front pages of the national dailies. Now, I would like to introduce our guest analyst. That's a newspaper reviewer in the studio, and he's not a new person. He's a constant. And we'd like to introduce Mr. Nuruddin Abdullah. Yes, he's the editor, 21st Century Chronicles. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Good morning. Good morning.
Yes. All right. So let's start with the front pages. The front pages, almost all front pages are actually talking about the outcome of the meeting, the ECOWAS meeting on Thursday, which was yesterday. And we've heard the Senate, say no troops should be sent to Niger. Nigerians are actually kicking against that too. But the outcome of the meeting yesterday, even though it actually says that the ECOWAS is open for diplomacy and actually talks, they still have resolved to deploy troops to Niger to, install democracy. What's your take on that? I'm trying to actually,
There's a lot going on.
I think, so many things happened, or so many things. It's an unfolding scenario. The decision by the ECOWAS during their second meeting yesterday, newspaper report was saying that, okay, the 7-day ultimatum ended. What next? And apparently the junta in Niger is different. You understand? They don't care about what you guys are doing. They appointed a new prime minister. They form a new government. It seems that the life looks normal for them. But in our case, there are two things that are normally being mixed up. One, the removal of the junta in Niger by Chiani is different from invasion of Niger. These are two things, if you know that, so intertwined with maybe some rippling, maybe even this, you can say deadly consequences. You can say you can't just go to Niamey, remove the roll down tanks or bombard the presidential villa, remove the head of the junta, Chiani, and his comrades, and that's all. You understand? They can't just stay back and do that. So that is the misconception that from day one, the Nigerian authorities in particular, and ECOWAS in general, refuse to make that clear. And secondly, Yes, Nigeria is a small country. I saw people, particularly on social media, saying that we have 300,000 troops. They have only less than 15 out of it. But I told someone, I say, but don't forget that Nigeria still has 300,000 troops. But we had to go to Chad, to the late Field Marshal Idris Deby Itno, with less than 15,000 soldiers to come to our aid, to fight Boko Haram, you remember. So it has to do with your resilience, with your discipline, and so on and so forth. If you pass through Niger, it's a French country, so the colony, so to say, but discipline. You see how even their policemen behave. A policeman in Abuja Street would be stopping, who said, nah, stop, you'll pass. But they are not on the street, they are on a shade. They just put one small, if you like, pass. Go to Kano from Abuja, they will send you back. So, there is that discipline on their own part. Another issue that many, particularly the ECOWAS guys, don't give attention to, and why many Nigerians, experts on what to feel, from the north and the south, I say, yes, Nigeria may look small. Yes, compared to ECOWAS, compared to Nigeria. But you remember what happened in Libya? After NATO removed Gaddafi, it aggravated the insurgency in Nigeria because, Gaddafi was a strong man. He has bunkers of ammunition and what have you. And what happened to it? Insurgents, Boko Haram, ISIS, ISWAP, rebels, we have the Azwaj in Mali, what have you, just proliferated the insurgency across Africa. President Buhari, on several occasions, has attributed the resurgence of insurgency in Nigeria to what happened in Libya. And now we are going to Niger. Niger is, when you talk, they have the largest landmass in Africa. 99.9% desert. We had 1,600 stretch of border with them across 7 states. How are you going to handle that? That is the implication that many people don't look at it. By the time you attack, are you not creating a new center, a new ground zero for all terrorists to mass in and leverage on that opportunity to further launch attacks on the Sahel?
And let's not forget the masses, that will be caught up in between this.
That is another thing. Presently, hundreds, if not thousands of trucks are stranded across the border. In and out. Look at that.
Containing food.
In implication. Another aspect has to do with, now, we removed the junta in Niger. What happened to Mali? They are part of ECOWAS, or before now. What happened to Burkina? They are part of ECOWAS. What happened to Guinea? They are part of ECOWAS. Where was ECOWAS?
When, the junta took
when the junta in Mali took over, they did it in Burkina. When Mamadi Doumbouya in Guinea did it. Okay, is it now Niger that?
No, I think it's becoming to dawn on them that if we don't stop this now, then it's going to continue.
But the funniest part of it, on the telly just now, I saw Fore Yasimbe Yadema, the Togolese leader. When his father died, his father was a despot, everybody knows. The boy, his son, took over. The first messenger sent by ECOWAS to the junta in Niger was Mohammed Idris Deby Itno. His father died on the front line. Instead of handing over power to the speaker, they brought the son and he's then put. So the way even ECOWAS look at it is on democracy. I saw Alassane Ouattara. The ECOWAS peer review mechanism said that you cannot change electoral laws 6 months to election. He did. He amended the constitution and went for third time.
All right, so what about the junta in Niger appointing a prime minister, they say? You know, that's is it finance and economy minister?
What I'm saying is this, you know, the junta in Niger is different, one, and they have their reasons. Yes, they are relying on some, they have the uranium, even though we have American base in Agadas, we have the French forces in Agadas, protecting the uranium. Yes, what ECOWAS is doing, you know, many Nigerians don't share that idea. They're tired of France. France got more than 1/3 of its nuclear power from uranium. They power their nuclear power with 1/3. They got it from Niger. And Niger is the poorest. The Nigerians are angry. So that is it. They are not getting anything in return. No roads, no anything. So do a referendum in Niger, whether they are in support of the junta or not. So these are some of the issues. That's why they are moving ahead, as far as they are concerned. And why is it so? They are raising the stake for negotiation. That's why they are quick. You know, they do things in a very quick. Now, when you finally they agree to come to the table, you said that they should reinstate Bazoum. Very, very unlikely. Very, very unlikely. At worst, they will give a timetable. They will calendar the transition. Yes, AU, yes, ECOWAS, you know, we are tired, we'll do a referendum. Let the Nigerians speak.
Another democratic process.
Exactly. Maybe they'll say in 6 months, in 1 year, in 2 years, and provided they will give access to the Western powers, to the uranium mines, they can stay there as long as they wish. So President Tinubu is caught in that way, you understand? And the decisions made by ECOWAS, military action, I know at the beginning, you know, wasn't the situation. You cannot separate Niger with northern Nigeria. That's a fact. We have 1,600 borders. Boko Haram was exacerbated, aggravated their attacks because they got weapons from Libya. How many kilometers? Not to talk of a state that you have border with. Look at the rebels. Look at ISIS, ISWAP, whatever. They will just flock to Niger, use the opportunity, cause havoc. And look at, okay, who will even fund the deployment? It's cheap talk. Who will fund it? Ghana, Gambia, Ivory Coast, Togo, Benin? No. When Nigeria intervened in Sierra Leone and Liberia, 90% or more was funded by ABB, ECOMOG. Who will fund it? That is why he has to go, the President Tinubu has to go to Senate, because he needs money. And look at even the economic condition in the country. We shouldn't be carried away, you understand, by the Nigerian. Yeah, we have to safeguard democracy, but the people have a choice. You understand? There is no state in Nigeria without military deployment. Where are you going to pluck them from? Is it from Southern Kaduna? Is it from Birnungari? Is it from Zamfara Katsina, Sokoto? Or is it from Maiduguri, Yobe, or Adamawa? Or is it from the southeast? And how many do we have in South? The state with the lowest deployment, I think, is the southwest. Why are you going to flock them from, or not send them to Niger? All these are dynamics. What the ECOWAS, as they meet and take tea and talk, what their citizens need is good governance. Provided there is no good governance, people like Chiani, Mamadi Doumbouya, Sekou Touré, and what if you will have, will still come, and they will be supported by their citizens.
Yeah, people are saying there is no much resistance, from the Nigerian.
No, he's just a gas brigade guy. All the military formations, the army chief supported him. The chief of defense staff supported him. And look at the street. People are celebrating him. And more importantly, because of the neo-colonialist tendencies of the France. Everything about these French countries is France, 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 France. They get uranium, but Nigeria is the poorest.
It's not balanced at all.
All right.
Thank you so much for your analysis this morning, Nuruddin Abdullah. As always, we appreciate you taking time out to be here with us.
Thank you very much.
All right, so that was Nuruddin Abdullah on the newspaper review today. He's the editor of 21st Century Chronicles. And with that, we've come to the end of Daybreak on Trust TV. I remain Darshan Hussaina Usman. Have a wonderful weekend.
And I am Sumaya Abubakar. Thank you so much for staying with us. Don't go anywhere. For our sports person, we'll be bringing you the sports update.